Hi, welcome back. Today's video is going to address numerous messages that I've received regarding clarification on the concept of indirect and direct objects in a sentence. So we're just going to kind of dive into it. The first thing I would like to do is to clarify the parts of a sentence which are going to be relevant to understanding the concepts of indirect and direct objects. So on my screen, or on your screen I suppose, first we have to look at what a subject is. You're going to hear that a lot as far as English is concerned. There's two parts to a sentence for the most part, a subject and a predicate. A subject is defined as the noun, if I can spell noun, the noun or pronoun which is performing the verb, right? So the verb in the sentence, we'll just complete it. So there's generally an action in a sentence, and the subject of that sentence is the thing which is performing that action, okay? An example, just for clarity's sake, so I'll just put it in here. Stephen spoke into the camera. Okay, well, here we've got our subject, which is our proper noun in this case, Stephen, myself, right? And what did he do? What's the verb? Oh, he spoke into the camera. So that would be our adverbial phrase citing where I'm speaking, right? So I'm speaking, we know that, but in this case it would be into a camera. All right, so we know the subject, again, is a noun or pronoun which is performing an action of the sentence. Now we're going to look at what's known as a direct object. A direct object is the thing which is being acted upon, right? So it is that thing being affected directly, hence the name, by the verb. Let's go ahead and look at an example or a few examples. Gosh, my spelling, huh? We could say Stephen ate a sandwich. Very creative. All right, so again, going back to our subject, which is Stephen, performing the action. Well, what did he do? He ate. Well, what was the thing that was being eaten in this case? Oh, it was the, it was the sandwich. So the sandwich in this case, and I'll just mark it, is the direct object, because it's being immediately impacted by the verb, which I really should put in parentheses, ate, right? Which is the past tense form of eat. Let's go ahead and look at another example. Sorry, let me just drop this down just for my own sake. Another example I can give you is Mr. Chunks, which is my cat. So that would be our subject, right? That's our noun. Whipped his tail. Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and just mark that. So Mr. Chunks, which is our subject. The action here is he whipped his tail, which would be our direct object. Again, because that's the thing. In this case, the tail is performing the action, right? But it's the tail that is subject to the action. So it's the thing doing the whipping. But really, the thing attached to it, or rather the tail is attached to our actual subject, the noun. So you wouldn't treat tail as the subject, even though you could argue, well, it's a noun and it's the thing being or performing the action, right? Because it's the tail that's doing the whipping. Still, in this case, you would consider the fact that the sentence is centered around Mr. Chunks. So you wouldn't consider the tail the subject to that sentence, just for those that may be a little unclear, because it does seem a little curious. All right. Now let's move on into an indirect object. Let me go ahead and throw my glasses on. With an indirect object, you're dealing with something that is how should I say? It's an indirect recipient of a direct object. Okay, so let me go ahead and look at this. I'll write it as this. So it's the recipient, if I could spell, recipient of an action. Okay, let's look at an example of that. Sorry, my spacings are all over the place, huh? Let's go ahead and look at an example. Here I can say, my friend Juan threw me a ball. Okay, so let's break down the sentence a little bit, just to make it simpler for us to be able to identify the direct and indirect objects. So first, we've got my friend Juan, and really you can highlight or underline rather, you would consider that phrase as the subject, right? Because it's my friend Juan. Really, it's Juan who's the subject. And what did he do? Well, he threw, is what he did, but he didn't throw me, meaning he didn't physically pick me up and throw me. That would not be an easy task, at least I would think that. Instead, what he threw is actually what he threw is actually the ball, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and identify that as the direct object because it's the thing being immediately affected by his actions, which is the throwing, correct? Which means that, in this case, me, right? I'm the indirect object because I'm the recipient of that action, right? Okay, so let me go ahead and mark that. I don't know how I'm going to differentiate it. We'll do this, bold and italics, sorry. So it's the indirect object. It may not be super clear, so let's do another example. I could say, okay, Michelle gave Juan a gift, let's say, okay? Okay, well, Michelle is the subject of our sentence. The action in this sentence is, well, she gave Juan a gift, but she didn't. If you were to look at the sentence as, let's say Juan would be our direct object, right? That would mean that Michelle gave Juan, literally took Juan and gave him, right? Like as though he were an object. But that's not what she's doing. What she's doing is actually she's going to give him a gift in this sentence, which is the direct object. It's the thing that she's giving, right? Which makes Juan, or, oops, did I just delete it? I did. Sorry. So it makes Juan our indirect object, right? He's going to be the recipient of the gift that she is giving. And because I think this is still a little shaky, I'd like to give another example. Oops, if I can get this right. Okay, going back to my cat. So Mr. Chunks decided to hit the ball to his brother, right? Or swat. Let's say instead of hit, he's swat the ball toward his brother. His brother Blue. Okay, so we've got Mr. Chunks, who is our subject in this sentence, and he decided, so there's a few different actions. So he decided to swat, because that's really the verb that is one that, okay, so there's multiple verbs because decided again is an action, but swat in this case is going to be our focus, okay? So swat is our verb also. The ball, which is our direct object. And then we have this adverbial phrase towards his brother, Blue, but Blue would be our indirect object because he's going to be the recipient of the action. So indirect object, right? He's the one who is receiving the ball that Mr. Chunks swat towards him. So, okay. I believe that clarifies it. So just to summarize, we have our subject, which in the notes, it's a noun or a pronoun which is performing the action in the sentence, all right? Direct object, which is the thing being acted upon. It's the thing receiving the action directly, hence, again, the name. And then we have our indirect object, which is the recipient of the action, okay? And again, going back to the example, which I'm going to go ahead and highlight. Actually, there's two, but let's highlight the first example, where I have my friend Juan threw me a ball. Again, if you were to switch it and say, okay, well, me, which I have bolded and italicized, if you were to identify that as the direct object, that would mean that Juan is taking me as the direct object and throwing me, right? Physically throwing me, which wouldn't be fun for anyone. So you would have to use a little bit of logic when you're reading a sentence, especially when you're taking a grammar test or whatnot. And you would say, okay, well, it doesn't seem plausible, especially in the context of that sentence. So my friend Juan threw me a ball. Oh, okay, so the ball is the direct object. That's the thing hopefully being thrown. And it's me who is receiving what he's throwing, right? Which is the ball. So he's throwing me the ball, which makes me the recipient Therefore, I am the indirect object. So, okie doke. I hope this helps to clarify a little bit about, or the distinction between indirect and direct objects as they relate to a sentence in English. I look forward to making more content that hopefully clarifies things or makes things a little bit more easy to understand. So please continue to provide comments or send me messages, give suggestions. I really do appreciate it. All right, for now, I hope you guys have a good day. Bye.